For a century after Columbus reached the Americas, the major European empires ignored North America completely. Spain and Portugal drew a line down the middle of the map, carving up South America, the Caribbean, and parts of Asia, leaving the northern continent mostly empty and unclaimed. The English arrived nearly 100 years late to this global land grab. They eventually established a precarious foothold with small settlements at Jamestown and Plymouth, which slowly grew into the original 13 colonies. By the time those colonies fought a revolution and won their independence in 1783, they faced a severe geographical trap. The new United States was completely boxed in, surrounded by hostile territories. This population chart reveals a massive internal crisis. Numbers doubled every 20 years, families averaging 7 children, trapping a booming nation inside borders that were not expanding. All those massive families needed space to farm and live. Thousands of people packed their entire lives into wagons and began migrating west into unclaimed lands, simply to find enough room to survive. For the young nation, expanding its borders was a mathematical necessity. If the United States didn't find a way to acquire more land, the country would collapse under its own population growth. The government was forced to figure out how to take over the rest of the continent. To claim the rest of the continent, the United States relied on 2 distinct tools: the checkbook and the sword. First came the checkbook. France controlled the massive Louisiana territory, but Napoleon Bonaparte urgently needed cash to fund his wars with Britain. In 1803, America bought the entire middle of the continent for $15 million, instantly doubling the size of the country. Purchasing land was highly efficient. For $15 million, the United States acquired millions of acres and completely removed a dangerous European superpower from its backyard, all without spilling a single drop of American blood. The government used this exact same tactic decades later. Secretary of State William Seward negotiated a treaty with the Russian Tsar to buy the sprawling, freezing territory of Alaska for just over $7 million. While the checkbook strategy easily secured massive Central Plains and Arctic forests, diplomacy completely failed when it came to acquiring highly specific, heavily guarded coastlines. Down on the southern border, Mexico had recently won its independence from Spain, and the Mexican government had no interest in selling its land. When American settlers in Texas broke away to form their own republic and join the U.S., tensions boiled over. When haggling failed, the U.S. pivoted to violent conflict. A brutal war with Mexico ended with the United States paying $15 million to take over the northern Mexican territories, finally securing the highly strategic Pacific coastline of California. The economic payoff was immediate. Right after the Americans took California, vast deposits of gold were discovered, flooding the new territory with wealth and desperate miners. But rapidly conquering half a continent created a deadly internal crisis. Northern and southern states violently disagreed over whether slavery should be allowed in these massive new western territories. That political dispute eventually triggered a devastating civil war. The North won, the slaves were freed, and the nation reunited. But by the time the dust settled, the westward march had slammed into a watery wall. The American frontier was officially closed. By strategically alternating between shrewd diplomacy and aggressive warfare, America conquered its own continent from sea to sea. Now, there was nowhere left to grow. Heading into the 20th century, the United States had built a booming industrial economy. To protect its international trade, the country desperately needed to project military power across the oceans. It needed a global navy. You cannot sail a coal-powered warship across the entire Pacific in one trip. The strategy was annexation, claiming tiny, highly specific islands across the globe to serve as permanent refueling pit stops for American ships. American businessmen had already taken control of the Hawaiian Islands. The U.S. government officially annexed them, securing a vital commercial hub and a crucial naval base right in the middle of the ocean. Then, a mysterious explosion sank an American warship off the coast of Cuba. The U.S. government quickly used the incident to demand Spain leave the island, triggering the Spanish-American War. The American military easily dismantled what remained of the Spanish Empire. In the aftermath, the United States acquired a sprawling portfolio of strategic overseas colonies, taking control of Cuba and Puerto Rico and the Philippines. To connect these new global assets, President Theodore Roosevelt backed the creation of an entirely new country, Panama, just to build a massive canal. This engineering marvel allowed the new U.S. Navy to rapidly shift fleets between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. America's status as a superpower was a highly engineered three-phase evolution. The country survived as claustrophobic colonies, bought and fought its way across a continent, and finally seized strategic islands to project power across the globe.